Welcome to Education in Focus. I'm Eliana Kernodle. Today we'll be talking about college affordability. The House held a hearing this week discussing the topic and in particular, antitrust concerns surrounding the Ivy League. Joining me to dig into this is Andrew Rice, a reporter for the Center Square. Andrew, what are the antitrust concerns that representatives and witnesses in this hearing raised?
Right. Well, hello, Eliana. The concerns raised by many of the witnesses and representatives on this committee were really focused on antitrust issues and the breaking of antitrust laws by elite universities, specifically Ivy League universities. So representatives brought up issues such as low class admission rates at many high tier Ivy League universities, such as Brown, Harvard, Princeton, and others, as well as the collusion to target more wealthy students so that they could bring them in for admissions practices. There was also a big concern raised by witnesses and representatives about an administrative bloat in many of these institutions. For example, Representative Scott Fitzgerald said in the hearing, he's a Republican from Wisconsin, said, ever since Ivy League was established in the 1950s, the schools were focused on exclusivity, maximizing profits, and artificially inflated prestige. One witness on the committee hearing, his name was Scott Martin. He's a partner at a Washington, D.C. based law firm called Hausfeld, pointing to several signs of antitrust concerns. He said these concerns were embedded in the structure of Ivy League institutions. These included the Ivy League's nonprofit status, their high endowment rates, and, like previously mentioned, limited acceptance rates, all pointed to a fundamental disregard of antitrust legislation.
And I know some people also mentioned concerns about the lack of transparency in pricing and how we don't really know how they're setting the cost for any given student. Can you tell me a little more about that?
Right, exactly. Well, that has been the central focus point of a lot of legal issues and challenges brought by former students of Ivy League institutions. And that was also a topic of conversation brought up in this committee hearing. Representative Fitzgerald brought up that there were students back in 2022, a group of former students sued several Ivy League organizations because of a collusion to use financial service calculators and the resources that many of these institutions had to target wealthy families and individuals to find out exactly how much they could pay for college, how much they could afford, and charge them that exact amount.
And you mentioned kind of the concerns around bloat in the universities, and one of the witnesses, specifically a student from Brown, that was one of his kind of main concerns. Can you tell us a little about his testimony?
Right, exactly. So one of the witnesses, a student, Alex Shea, he's a rising junior at Brown University. He was also a journalist for the Brown Spectator. He back in March, sent Doge-like emails to the administrative staff at Brown University asking what they had done for their jobs in the previous week. He was concerned that the administrative staff, the non-teaching faculty, far outnumbered any reasonable ratio in his mind to the actual undergrad population. He said these were the main reasons why Brown would be charging almost $93,000 in tuition per year for this academic year, as well as, while charging that much, also being expected to run a $46 million deficit in their costs. So, and that deficit is from things that money that they cannot track, and money that they're losing out on in what they're spending. He said he was really concerned about this. And when he brought these concerns in an investigation through his Doge style emails, he was met with an investigation from the administration. Charges were quickly dropped after that investigation, but he was investigated for harassment by administration officials.
And on the other side of this hearing, many members pointed to other things that would influence college affordability that they believe are more pressing than just antitrust in the Ivy League. What were some of the other concerns raised by other members?
Right. Well, many Democrat members of the commission and even one of the witnesses before the committee were more concerned about prices of not Ivy League institutions, but rather prices for state and community college educational institutions. So they brought up more of those concerns, and specifically they were concerned about the cuts to many federal student aid programs brought about by the One Big Beautiful Bill that was just passed in the House several weeks ago. And is still in the Senate for appropriations. There have been lots of concerns that there were cuts and limits to Pell Grants, limiting Pell Grants for students that are not full time. So Pell Grants students that are not full time cannot receive Pell Grants any longer. And then also limiting the eligibility for general student loans, as well as how much a student can take out in loans for a particular time to complete a degree. There's also some stipulations that colleges have to invest in those student loans if they go into default. So that was a big concern brought up, and some ways that they decided to address these concerns, or the ways that Democrat members and one witness on the panel believe that these concerns can be addressed, is in furthering federal investment in these programs rather than cutting them back. So furthering federal investment in student financial aid programs, as well as furthering investment for states to be able to prop up these educational institutions. One witness, Julie Margaretta Morgan, she's a president of the progressive think tank, the Century Foundation. Morgan said the focus for higher education costs should be on community colleges and those state institutions, because they are the ones that teach a larger percentage of these student populations. So Morgan said that the price that state institutions charge for tuition is largely dependent on the appropriations that states make for them. So in order to solve this problem, the Democrat members and witnesses really wanted to hammer home the point that federal investment in state educational standards should be paramount, and rather than cutting those back.
Well, Andrew, thank you for your insights on this story. It's definitely a complicated topic. Antitrust laws are complicated, and all of the different factors that contribute to what's going on in our universities are definitely complicated. Hopefully, we'll see some progress on these topics, but I'm sure we will continue to follow those, and anyone can keep up with that at thecentersquare.com.